How's everyone doing? Hope you're alright. It's Cody. I'm back again. Um, this video is on prisons in 2016. So we're talking like prison issues, life in prison, what's happening behind bars. I did a video last year about 2015 prison, about what's going on, the problems and all that sort of stuff. This is just an update, to be honest. Right, let's just jump straight into it. Prison 2016. I mean, I got out in 2015, and it's just I still speak to people in prison. I'm still in contact with a lot of the lads from Cat A's to Cat B's, prisons throughout the United Kingdom. So cut a long story short, there is so much in the media at the moment. You had the Wandsworth prison documentary that it's actually on my channel. You'll have to find it. And the 25 minutes of the BBC News were given access after begging the Ministry of Justice for months and months and months. They finally got access, and yeah, it wasn't a watered down version of what goes on in prison. It was everything. Now, I did an interview with local media the other day about prison officer numbers, the shortages, and what are the effects of the shortages. I was actually I was interviewed, and there was also a guy from the Prison Officers Association, a screw that works down in Kent, in a prison in Kent, and we was both actually singing off the same hymn sheet, which is quite strange because obviously I'm fighting for prisoners' rights and everything, and he wants better conditions for prison officers, and I want better treatment and conditions for prisoners. And like I said, so it was just a big issue that came to head and stuff, and we actually agreed that I said we need more prison officers. Now, like, before people start jumping in and commenting, right, let me explain, right? We need more prison officers in the fact of more prison officers equals more association, more exercise for the lads, because the simple fact is being locked up in your cell for long periods of time has a detrimental effect on people's mental health. Now, that's not an off the cuff comment, that's a fact. The longer you are behind your door, 20, right, when I was in Strangeways, right, like I served time in Strangeways, Cat A prison in the northwest, right, in Manchester, right, and we used to be locked behind our door 22, 23 hours a day, right, and then a lot of the time, like quite a bit of the time, it was quite often longer than 24 hours. Probably the longest was about 38, 39, 40 hours before we actually got out of our cells. Now, when you're locked down for that amount of time and stuff, it really does have a detrimental effect on your brain, because you're being taken away. We're social people, we're social creatures. We like to engage with other people. We like to have a laugh and stuff like that, and joking and having a laugh. I think that helps your mental health and stuff. Speaking to your family on the phone, visits, all that sort of stuff. And the lack of prison officers here in 2016, what it does, it leads on to like shortened visits, right? Your family are traveling from all over the United Kingdom, right? Not everyone in prison is from the area that they're in prison. So families sometimes have to travel hours to get to go and see the loved ones, right? And then when they get in there, because there's less and less security staff on reception, by the time they've cleared like reception and got upstairs on a visit, an hour visit, it's become like 40 minutes, 35 minutes, 45 minutes. And it's a joke, to be honest. And you only get, when you're convicted, you're only getting one visit a week. And then obviously you're not getting association and exercise, which obviously that's like the lads should be treated like human beings, right? Yes, we're in the prisoners, right? But they still should have human rights where they can go, and if you're locked behind your door, right, you can't have exercise, you can't have association, you can't ring your fucking friends and family, right? You might have loved ones that are getting old and stuff like that, your kids and stuff, they might be starting school or things like that. You need to speak to them, and then when you're all let out, everyone runs to the phones and stuff, so then there's fights taking place over the fucking phones. Then we get to the fact of like the prison officers, that prisons and wings are fast becoming no-go areas for prison officers. Now that's a bit mad to say, innit? Like, prisons are becoming no-go places for prison officers, right? Because the simple fact is Prison officers give the lads a kick in because they're understaffed, massively overstretched, and massively overworked. They're working like skeletal. They're running skeletal shifts, right? They're not working at full operational capacity, right? Then the lads are behind the doors for longer, so they're getting out, they're getting antsy, they're kicking off. They might target a screw that's targeted them in the past. It's like a vicious circle. The prison officers, like these private prisons, right, G4S, Sodexo run prisons and stuff like that, that are not Ministry of Justice, that they've been sold down the river. They're being governed, right, by fucking glorified security guards, right? Right, they might do a bit of training here and there and like control and restraint and all that bullshit, right? But like, it's the private prisons that they're run by glorified security guards that before they went to work in prison, they was probably working security at music concerts and festivals and shit like that. And then you've got the language barrier. There's a lot of people in prison because of how diverse the UK is and how lapsed the borders were in the past. Well, still are, to be honest, until the Brexit thing comes in. You've got prisoners from all over the world, right here in the prison system here in the UK. And there's a language barrier, right? And like some of these lads don't speak a fucking word of English, right? And the staff are not like language trained and stuff. They're not bilingual. They can't start fucking speaking this, that, and the other to different people. Romanian, Polish, Pakistani, Middle Eastern, fucking like Iranians, like French, German, Spanish, like Lithuanian. They can't speak all these languages. Right, so that's a big problem, right? Then you've got the fact of a lot of these lads that are in prison, they've served the sentence and they're waiting to be deported, but because there's no space in like these immigration centres and stuff, people are ended up in prison for weeks and months and years after they should have been evicted from the country. Because there's a backlog of stuff like that. The country's on its fucking arse, right? The prison system's a fucking joke. The prisons are now, because of the detrimental effects it's having on prisoners being locked behind the doors for longer periods of time. They're becoming like mental asylums. They are. There's a lot of lads in prison that have got mental health issues, right? That stab themselves, try and hang themselves, slash up, smash the cell up, try and take their own life or do take their own life. And it's not because they want to. It's because they're simply like they want to, like they want help and they try everything. They speak to the staff. The staff don't give a shit. The staff haven't got the time of day for the lads. All that happens now, the screws are locking themselves in the fucking office, right, and letting the lads run amok. And lads are openly smoking fucking spice and drugs and everything else. There's more drugs legalised and fucking weapons and mobile phones in prison than there are prison officers, right? That's not an off-the-cuff comment, it's a fucking fact, right? And like I say, with the government cutbacks and stuff, they've tied the hands of the Ministry of Justice, which have tied the hands of the prison officers, which have then tied the hands of the screws, of the lads, sorry, because the lads can't get out and can't get association. And then you've got IPP prisoners in prison for public protection, or as I call it, indefinite public protection, because the simple fact is, you don't know when you're going to get out. The prison officers' lack of empathy and stuff like that, the fuck it's beyond a joke. They treat the lads like shit, but the lads are human beings and they should be spoken to with, like, decently. They should be spoken to how they speak to the screws, because a lot of good lads in jail are yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, right? Because it makes, like, it's just easier that way, innit, to where you get what you want if you be nice. Obviously most parts of the prisons are running feral, and it's all like under the influence of drugs and like I say, legalised, and mobile phones and stuff. IPP prisoners, I feel so sorry, right? I feel sorry for prisoners across the board, right? I was on remand. Sentenced prisoners, obviously, you get 10 years, you're doing 5, you know when you're getting out. IPP prisoners, right? It's like people can say to you, oh, when you get... I was padded up with a kid in strange ways who was IPP, right? Kid from Salford, right? Good kid as well, proper good kid. And you know what, right? He went on all these courses that probation put to him and all this, right? And he did all these courses and kept jumping through. He asked for a paper. No, he didn't. He asked for a verbal hearing, right, for his appeal, right? And he got they slid it under his door, and they requested a paper panel, and he didn't even request a paper panel. Paper panel is where you don't go in, it's just like they read through your paperwork and then they make a decision on that. He actually asked for a verbal hearing, and they fucked him off, and he jumped through hoop after hoop for the probation service, right? And it doesn't matter what he did, he couldn't win. If he didn't go to the courses and everything, right, he'd be fucking crossed off, right, and he'd be down the river, and he wouldn't let him out, right? He jumps through hoops, they moved the hoops, he jumps through the fucking hoops, and he still don't let him out, and then he used to come back and smash the cell up. And you know what, right? I don't blame him, because you're in a catch-22, right? You don't do it, you do it. It doesn't matter, because either way you're going to get fucked off. But if you do the courses and stuff, and you yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, right? In your mind, you've got more of a chance of getting out, and it just doesn't work. It's fucking disgusting how the IPP prisoners are treated. It's illegal, it's immoral, and it's fucking wrong. Like I say, prisons they're overcrowded. You've got cells that are meant for one person living with 2 people in them. The amount of mental health cases within prisons, like, it is through the roof. Like, there's so many lads in prisons that they're becoming psychiatric units, right? Because it's turning lads that might have had issues, right? Whether it be, they say roughly that 85% of people that go to prison have got some sort of mental health illness, right? Now, mental health isn't just like psychosis, like paranoid schizophrenia, anger. It's all this sort of, it's not just all that stuff. It's anger, it's depression, it's anxiety. All these things stem from your brain, right? Now, prison, like, actually has a detrimental effect. I mean, people, these middle classes that read these stories and stuff, oh, prison's a really good idea. I mean, we need to lock these scumbags away, right? Well, I've been in prison. I'm from the streets, right? I'm a street kid. I'm from Manchester. I've been involved with gangs, been involved with crime and all that sort of stuff, right? Prison, I learnt more about crime. I was clued up anyway. I went to prison, and I learnt more about crime in prison than I could ever have imagined on the street. Because when you're in prison, it's like being at school, and it's like being in the naughty class. Except from the naughty class has got like 100, 200 people on your wing, right? And you start speaking to the lads, and the lads are then like, oh, yeah. And you learn so much more, and then you get contacts of contacts. So it actually germinates the problem of crime, because when you get out, you're thinking, fucking hell, my guy was telling me about fraud there, and he's got a bunny outside there that can set me off. So you get out, you ring the number, you go and speak to the kid, right? You have a meet up, you go for a beer, and then you're on the way to fraud. Then you're thinking, fucking hell, because people don't really employ ex-cons that have been to jail. If you've got 10, 20, 30 people going for a job, and you're a convict, yeah, and you've been in jail, and you've got a record as long as your leg, right, or as long as your arm, right, you ain't getting the fucking job, right? So you turn back to it. So this is the problem. So you resort back to crime. You learn another crime, you come out, you go again, right? Crime, if you've got no experience or no qualifications, and you've got this criminal record and stuff, right, and you're not going to get employed, you have to do a bit of this and a bit of that to survive, right? Now, 100% of, so if you earn money, 100 illegally, it's 100% of something is better than is better than fuck all, innit? Right? So this is the thing. So you go to prison and you learn. To be honest, I would have found the punishment more suitable, right? I was on remand for witness intimidation, yeah? It was a bullshit charge. I should never been in prison. And the judge actually apologised for me being in prison, because the fucking police and the Crown Prosecution Service colluded against me to get me off the streets, right? Because they've been after me for a long time. And like I say, it's just crime germinates in prison. It spreads. It just like this is the problem. It just spreads and stuff. A punishment for me would have been community service, right? Or tag and community service, because then you can't go. It's like being imprisoned. Tag is like being in prison, right? Because in prison, right, you can get drugs. You got access to mobile phones, the internet, fucking drugs, mobile phones, legalized. You've got everything you can pretty much get on the street. You can get in prison, and then some people, it's not as common these days, but people can knock up like hooch as well, like prison alcohol, which is fucking potent. So like I say, it goes on and on and on. So I would, if I was on tag, right, and you break your tag, then you could go to jail. But before that, give me community service, right? If I'm on a community service, I've got to graft and put something back into society, right? Which is a pain in the ass because you don't want to do it, but if you don't do it, you know you could go to prison. So that's looming over your head, and that should be the system. And obviously there's certain crimes that above a certain place, above a certain level, have got to go to prison because that deems fit. But if we lower the bar by a lot, right? But you've got people in prison that are in for shoplifting and stuff like that. It's fucking stupid. If you're a drug addict and you go to prison for stealing, you go to prison, you carry on taking fucking drugs, you get out of prison, you know that you don't know anything else, you go straight to the nearest shop, Marks and Spencer's or something in fucking town, and you steal. And that's just a vicious cycle, so you don't learn nothing. The only person, all this rehabilitation and reform is a load of fucking bullshit, right? It's a made-up word, so people like Liz Truss, the Justice Secretary, right, can have a fucking job, feel important and walk around, and earn tens of thousands of hundreds, probably over £100,000, right? She probably sits in a nice big house, right? Commenting and setting rules for people that she has no experience of. It makes me fucking pissed. The country's on its arse, right? The next conversation we're going to have, radicalisation in prisons, right? I'm a former prisoner. I'm a former soldier. I nearly converted to Islam many, many years ago. And then, I've seen what happens in prisons and stuff like that. Radicalisation, they're talking in the media and the Justice Secretary, this Liz Truss woman, that she seems to be fucking clueless, right? She's going on, we're going to stop extremism. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to be proactive, right? Well, so let me get this right. So they're gonna put these they're gonna move these extremists around, these Muslim extremists that radicalise and stuff. They're gonna move them around from prison to prison, segregate them, right? But there's a problem with that, right? When it comes to Muslim prayer time, right, 5 times a day, right, there's only one chapel to read prayers, right, and they've got to do it at a certain time. So they all come out, all the different lads off all the different wings, right, will meet in the rotundas, right, and then from there they'll all be taken to the prayer room to go and say namaz and to say Jummah, right. So it's not practical at all. The first problem as well is going to be it's a breach of the prisoner's human rights. The next thing as well, they're saying that if we put these lads in isolation, these Muslim extremists these people that radicalise people in isolation units and stuff, and move them from prison to prison, right? That's going to stop it. Now, let me just say something, right? They can't stop fucking drugs and mobile phones and fucking drones full of contraband of mobile phones, drugs, legalised weapons being sent over the fucking wall to deliver to people's cells like ordering a takeaway. But yet the Ministry of Justice are talking about stopping words and thoughts. How the fucking hell does that work then? You can't stop drugs and fucking contraband getting into prisons, right? Most of the screws are fucking bent and on the take and stuff, coming into fucking prison with fucking smartphones, selling them and stuff to top up their wage and stuff and try and befriend the lads. There's corrupt screws in every fucking prison, right? That's a fact. The lads are running the prison to an extent because when they get out, they're running rife. Prison officers are clueless. They're undertrained. They're massively understaffed. They're overstretched, and they've got their morale is so fucking low that it's a field day for the prisoners. It's like these prisoners in it's like prisons in South America where the guards stand on the perimeter wall, and the lads run their own prison. That's what it should fucking happen here, because that's the way it pretty much going. You've got a load of screws that are hiding behind the fucking office, shitting themselves because prisons are becoming no-go areas for fucking screws. You've got the lads begging for toiletries and stuff, like toilet rolls, toothpaste, all that crazy stuff they're having to beg for, which is fucking beyond a joke, right? They're kicking they're going mental because of obviously lack of exercise and lack of association. Association, right? Like I say, no prison officers or less prison officers and less and less prison officers year on year, more overcrowded prisons, right? Year on year, right? And it has a domino effect, right? And shit rolls downhill. And unfortunately, the inmates, the lads, the girls, the women, right, are at the bottom of this, whether it be a woman's prison or a man's prison. We're at the bottom of of that heap, right? So shit rolls downhill. And it's the prisoners that are getting a fucking short straw. And it's disgusting and it's sick and it fucking winds me up, right? It's not the lads' fault that the country's on its fucking arse, right? And like I say, they should interact with these prisoners and ask. They talk about prison reform, right? Like I say, prison reform is a fucking. I refuse to believe it's a made up thing, right? Resettlement, reform, all this bollocks, right? When I came out of jail, right, I nearly lost my flat because there was no housing officer at Strangeways, right, to speak to my landlord about my property, right? When I went to Cat B Forest Bank after our security moved, right, the housing officer I spoke to didn't even speak to my landlord. So I came out to eviction proceedings against me. I've already been fucking homeless. What did he want to do? And do you know what makes it worse as well? I nearly ended up back homeless, right, again, and had to fight tooth and nail to keep my property, right? And do you know what fucks me off about it the most, right? I wasn't even guilty of an offence. I was only on fucking remand. And a few weeks after I got out of jail and I got bail on a bail application, right, the charges against me were dropped, but I still nearly lost my flat. What? It fucks me off, right? Like I say, the prison staff, private prisons, most of the screws are swap the personality for a set of keys. The other screws in G4S prisons are fucking laughable. Honest to God, you just take the piss out of them. They're getting smashed up, they're getting beat to fuck, right? They get spat at, they get swore at, they get piss thrown over them. It goes on because people don't respect them. The glorified security guards people, right? And like I say, they used to go doing security concerts at fucking like music festivals and fucking doing the doors and working security at fucking like shopping centres and stuff. But yet then they're cast into a prison doing control and restraint training and stuff like that. They don't know how to deal with mental health, right? No prison officer is trained to deal with mental health issues, right? The amount of mental health issues within prisons is astronomical, right? And it's a joke and something needs to be fucking done about it. Then you've got the language problem. Then you've got overcrowded prisons. Then you've got like the fact of like the wings are becoming lawless. It's more dangerous in prison than it is on the streets, right? Because prisoners don't give a fuck, right? They've got nothing to lose. You're in prison for 15, 20 years, right? Life, whatever. You don't give a fuck what you do, right? What can you do? Add time onto your time onto your time. You don't give a fuck. Fucking simple as that, right? And like I say, but I do want more prison officers, unfortunately, even though I'm fighting for the lads for better conditions and stuff like that and treatment, like not being able to ring the loved ones and stuff like that, that's going to wind people up, right? Being locked behind your doors, being prodded like a tiger in a cage, right? You're in a small confined space with one other person that you can't swing a fucking cat in. You've got blaring heat that's magnified by the thick glass on the windows coming through. You can't cover your fucking windows because it's a security breach and stuff. They'll think you're trying to tunnel out and you can end up on fucking report and warning and shit like that and getting nicked for it, right? And it's just a fucking joke. Prison here in the UK in 2016, it is a fucking joke. Prisons should be renamed psychiatric units because the truth of the matter is, right, the lads are developing and developed long term are going to develop and have developed and are going to continue to develop serious mental health problems, and it's disgusting and it's a joke and it fucking winds me up and something needs to change. It won't change, but we still keep up the fight. Right, rant over. Take care, guys. Bye.